Hello everyone, my name is Atala and I am making this video about denouncing Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated solely because God told me to. And at this moment in time, I now have completely submitted myself to God and the things that He is wanting me to do. I was a little hesitant when He told me that this is what He wanted me to do because the initial reaction that I got when it came to me denouncing my letters, initially, when I had first done it, it was not a positive one. And because of that, the enemy put a lot of fear in me and caused me to, enemy didn't cause me to do it, I did it myself, but I had prolonged the process of me actually going through this video and the other things that God is telling me to do. And so I thank God that now that I have repented and truly asked for His forgiveness, that He's honored that and allowed me to come forth and still be able to do this video, because a lot of times when God is calling us to do something and we may not do what He wants us to do, when He wants us to do it, and how He wants us to do it, we can't just come back whenever we want. And I thank God that He has purposed this for me. And I just pray that whoever it is that is listening to this video will really receive what it is that I have to say. Because I truly do just want God to be glorified in everything that I may say, and everything that will come following. I know there are other women and men who have videos about them denouncing their letters, and I think they're great. And the way that God wants me to do my videos, the way that He wants me to do it. And there's actually going to be a series of videos, but we're just going to focus on this one for right now. So I was a Zeta for 3 years only, from 2013 till 2016. So my reasoning for becoming a Zeta had absolutely nothing to do with like what I saw within Zeta, and I feel like I may have said that when I was like interviewing, like, oh, I want to do community service and the things that I feel like a lot of people say because they don't want to sound like I just want to step and stroll. But that also wasn't my reason. My reasoning was because like I felt like I was destined to be a Zeta. Reason being is because my mom is a Zeta, and because my mom is a Zeta, and because my birth father, who passed away, was a Sigma, I felt like I had to be a Zeta. And then, you know, just along with that, my stepdad, he's an Omega, and so I feel like I had to be Greek regardless. And so being a Zeta, just, I had to. Like, there was no other choice. So with me being a Zeta, I was very passionate. I was very, how people would say, I was very out. I was very out Zeta. I was, and when it came to the things that I wasn't crazy about, like the sisterhood, it ended up being things that I actually really loved about it. I absolutely loved my line sisters. Oh man, and I absolutely loved my Neos and my Prophytes. They meant more to me than I ever would have thought that they would. So when it came time when I denounced my letters, it was a really hard reality to accept that me denouncing the organization was also me denouncing them. I had really thought that with although the sisterhood wasn't what we were labeled as, they were still my sisters. They were still my friends, because I feel like I was a really good sister. I really do. I was there for all of them. So it was really hurtful, and I had a hard time dealing with the fact that I lost. I felt like I lost them. And I felt like it was really unfair to me, but God is going to show you things like when you're willing to do things for him in obedience, as in denouncing these organizations, you're not going to be able to bring everything else with you. I had to also realize that when you get saved, everyone doesn't get saved with you. And I wanted that. I wanted everyone to now see the, wake up from the matrix that we were all under and now separate themselves from the various sins that we walked in daily. But that wasn't the case, and that was also a kind of a harsh reality that I had to accept. But you know that's what comes with salvation, coming out from among them. And it's unfortunate because sometimes out from among them means out from among your friends, out from among your family, just people and things that you probably never would have thought that you'd be separate from. But so so anyway, so within my time of being a Zeta, I was very passionate about it, and I loved it. Loved it, loved it. But there was always times within it that I questioned. I was uncomfortable. Because I would say, like, if we're a sisterhood, why is there so much drama within the sisterhood, within the business portion of it? There was a lot that went on in my experience of even joining. And, of course, the process of joining in itself, like, that's all demonic. At the end of the day, these organizations are demonic, whether we want to accept it or not. That was a hard thing for me to accept when I first heard it, because I was thinking I didn't come into this organization ready to praise Satan, ready to worship demons, or but when you're saved and you realize that there's a spiritual attachment to everything, and if something is not glorifying God, if something is not of God, it's the complete opposite. There is no gray area for God whatsoever. And in so knowing that, there's so much that the enemy shows itself in within these organizations, to where he's showing there's no God in here. We may say that we stand on Christian principles, but there really are no Christian principles. It's just that we want to have these certain morals about ourselves that are upstanding. Some may be more unique than others. Like Zeta, I really liked us for being finer women. But we're finer women, but we're out here making kitty milk and doing the lustiest of strolls and steps and everything. But we're finer women. But we want to have that sexual desire that is from other people. It's just, there's a lot of contradictions when it comes to these organizations. And I think time and time again, the devil shows himself. And time again, we want to ignore it, or we may come to a point to where we question something. Something may seem strange, but we don't really take the time to really look into that. There's a lot of videos that I watched after I had made the decision to denounce that really showed what different aspects of these Greeks meant, whether it be the symbols or the history, the Masonic history, things like that. And it just really gave more and more confirmation to the fact that we don't really know what these organizations are based out of until we are really doing the research that we need to do. And not just our founders and when we were founded and on what campus, the actual history of Greek letter organizations and how truly demonic how truly demonic it is, and where it truly does come from. But anyway, when I got saved, within me being a Zeta, I tried to be a light before I realized that I can't. What does light have to do with darkness? I can't be in these organizations trying to be the light to pull people out, but still wearing their letters. That's like trying to be in a gang but also trying to spread Christ. That's not how that works. Trying to be a drug dealer and still trying to bring people to Jesus. That's just not how that works. So it was a really tough experience for me because I tried to stay away from the bad things of Zeta, what I considered bad. So I'm not going to go to certain parties, or I'm not going to go with the intent to drink. I'm going to look out for my line sisters. I'm going to look out for my neos. But I really look no different to them. Who can you really be if you're just the designated driver? That's like no other time. So it wasn't until God showed me that I really can't be a part of these organizations because it is idolatry. I'm letting these organizations take place of God. I'm letting Zeta be my God. I was living for Zeta. We sing these songs without even thinking about us giving our whole heart, our mind, our soul to the organization. We sing them proudly without us really realizing that scripture that we need to be doing for God and not for these letters that we wear on our shirts or our jackets or bracelets or anything like that. And there's just so many portions of it that went above my head, or that I may have wondered about it, like, why are we blindfolded around these candles or things like that? But I never really took the time to look into it, because when you're of the world and you want something, you're not really looking at always how things are looking. And I think that's how a lot of people fall into certain situations, because they have one thing in mind. I could have just solely wanted sisterhood. I'll go through whatever it takes to get that. And so I'm not looking at what's detrimental in my process of getting there. And a lot of times that's how we end up where we are. A lot of Black organizations, we want to be seen, we want to show out, and we're so proud of ourselves for being a lifelong member. But at the same time, we have to pay for life membership, which makes no sense at all. But if the organization is already supposed to be a lifelong membership, but you pay dues to join, but you pay dues to stay in it. That's what idolatry is. Idolatry continues to ask for you, pull and pull you. It needs, and you have to keep giving and giving. You give, and then it keeps on taking from you. And that's what these organizations are. But when God showed me the idolatry aspect of these organizations, it was a real eye-opener for me. And I had never felt such conviction, because it was real tough to realize I'm not getting really anything out of it. Because even the moment that I said I was denouncing, every best friend that I thought I had wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. If I'm not associated with this organization, you don't want anything to do with me either. I didn't understand that. And it was real hard for me to accept it, but I had to also realize if you're not living for the same God as someone else, then they don't want anything to do with you. And as much as a pain that was for me at that time, it was such a blessing that I didn't realize. Because how much of a struggle would it have been if I still was holding on to that friendship, but all they were talking about was Greek events they were going to, or Zeta events that they were holding, and things like that. I would still be so torn. What would we have in common? Nothing. Just how light has nothing to do with darkness. I had to realize that. I had to realize that my family, who like my friendship that I now made family, wasn't really family at all. It was all a lie. Because that's what the enemy does. The enemy is a liar and the father of it. And so because of that, I had to also realize that everything that I thought was really wasn't at all. Because the moment that I go to Christ, it's all gone. It means nothing. And we have to also realize people who are Greek, that is the most important thing to them, especially if you're undergrad. But people who know nothing about Greek life, that means nothing to them. And it's just so funny how the enemy can make something feel so huge, so big, so important. We're going to boules and convocations and all types of events. But there's people out there living their lives not even caring about what you got to do when it comes to these organizations. But because the enemy has made it so big in our minds, it's the most important thing to us, to where people who don't know anything about it, it's like, I don't care. I don't care anything about what letters are on your shirt. That's why, like, I remember on Twitter I would see things about like randoms wearing like an AKA shirt, and it would be so funny. But this man don't care nothing about your organization. It's a shirt to him. And it's just funny how the enemy has deceived us so much, to where there is such a perception that blinds us, to make us think that this one thing that we are is so big, and it puts so much attention on ourselves that we start to lose sight of who God is, because it's not God that's being glorified at all. God is not within these organizations, no matter how hard you try to force it or act like he is. Is God at set? Is God in those dark parties that you have that so and so is hosting? Is God in Organite when you're bent over, when your neck rolling, when your tongue is out, when you're shimmying, when you're grinding onto the? I don't think so. My husband likes to say that these organizations are drenched in lust. We are drawn by the lust of our flesh. And these organizations, if you want it, it's going to have something in it that is going to draw you. You want attention, you got it. You want a bond, sisterhood, brotherhood, you got it. But the moment that you decide to step out of what you thought you wanted and you seek Christ, all that's going to be gone, and you're going to realize it was never real like you thought it was anyway. And so that was what I had to realize. I had to realize that there was no true bond like there is one that I have with Jesus Christ. There is no true freedom at all that I have when it comes to Jesus Christ. I remember how often I had to look at the blue light and how that was supposed to be my guiding light. There's so much that is misconstrued, that twists up things that is purely only in scripture, but the enemy will use it to make it seem like you can also find it here. All roads do not lead to heaven. If you're seeking truth and truth alone, no matter where you start, you're going to end up in Jesus. Because you're going to realize that everything else that you were a part of was wrong. And you're going to find out that Jesus Christ is the true and only way of salvation. These organizations that we associate ourselves with and are a part of say that, I'm going to go back to saying that we're Christian based, but at no point are we pointing our sisters or our brothers back to Christ, pointing them to salvation. We may be wanting to encourage each other. We want to be maybe wanting to want better for one another, but we're not preaching the gospel. This is not a ministry. This is separate from what God is wanting. And it took a lot for me to even come to that point, because with my mom being a Zeta, it was tough, because even my bond with her was severed in some way. My bond with my dad was severed in some way. And it just goes with the soul tie that comes within the organization. It goes with the God that you're living for. If I'm not living for your God, then it's hard to have a true bond and a true relationship with someone who you're not living the same with, especially when it comes to who you're living for. No matter how you try to wrap it, no matter how uh, no matter how you try to even put some type of God in it, wherever, God is not in the midst of these organizations. And so when it comes to relationships, even the ones that you're closest to, they can't stand, because at the end of the day, it's God who has the final say. And that was a tough thing for me, because when with friendship, that's hard, but then with family, parents, that's very, very tough. And I had to make that sacrifice and really realize who I wanted to live for. I didn't come into this world to do what it is that man say, even if that man is a parent, even if that man is a best friend, or whatever other family member that you honor and have respect for. If God says it, then that's it. And so that is truly what I've had to go through in the midst of me and my denouncing. And that's what was really tough about me having to do this video again, was because having to revisit that and then put it out there, it was already difficult enough, because there was some relationships that I have lost. And the only one out of all my pro fights, all my line sisters, all my neos that I still have a relationship with, is my line sister, who also denounced her letters, because I was really adamant in having her to see truly what the evil was in the organization. And it took her a while, because soul ties is really, that's a true thing. That's a true thing. But I really commend her for being so diligent in trying. And I've been really tough on her. She just took her Zeta license plate off her car. I'm really proud of her. But it's still a thing that has a hold on me. And so that's where deliverance comes in. Deliverance from anything is something to be celebrated. And so this is one thing that is not it's not separate from any of those other things. So I thank God for the opportunity to say to speak my testimony, and to really share what it is that I've experienced, because I hope that it really does reach someone, and that God is also speaking to them in another way too. So that isn't the only video that I'm going to be posting. I was given a revelation by God, explaining how important it also is to go through the process of denouncing the official way. Because to me, in my heart, I've been denounced years ago, because 2016 was my last year in the organization. But just like with anything that you may have in your heart in this world, there's still a process that there needs to go through. God can tell you that you're with your husband. Like God told me that this is my husband, or God told me this is my wife, or whoever. But there's still a process that needs to happen before you are officially married. You can't do things beforehand, like the whole premarital sex aspect of things. That's not, then you'll be living in sin. Same thing that goes with divorce. You could be completely done with the person and want nothing to do with them, moved out the house, not even speaking to each other, everything. But if you're dating someone, you're and you never filed papers or anything like that, you're technically still married. There's still a process that needs to go through, regardless of what's in your heart and what you believe. And so God showed me that even though in my heart, and just everything in my being, I have absolutely nothing to do with the organization, my name is still associated with it. And so there's a process now that God is explaining to me that I need to go through. And with me going through that process, he also wants me to document it, a video documentation of it. And I'm going to be posting that on YouTube as well. What I'm going to do is show my process in denouncing Zeta Phi Beta. And so, only thing that I've done so far is I've called nationals and asked them what the process was, and what they told me was I had to write a letter, get it notarized, and send my pin that I got when I became an official member. And in that letter, I need to write why I'm denouncing, and then that was it. I'm praying that that is it, but if it's not, then I'll just go along with the process even still. And I asked her, what if I threw away my pen? Because I did. Every Zeta thing that I had has been thrown in the dumpster or given to a line sister that I used to have. And so she said that I just have to write that in the letter. So with that being what she said, I'm going to do exactly that, and we're just going to see how that process goes. So this is my first video, and there's going to be many more videos to come. Another one that I'm going to do is going to have my wonderful, fine husband in it. Reason being is because he also denounced an organization, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and we're going to hear from him and his process and how he views and how he views the organizations and what God has shown him about it and everything. He's also really passionate about it as well. And he's just a wonderful man of God. I love him so much. And so this is going to be really great. And I just thank God for this opportunity, because I know it's going to be real great and it's going to touch many people. And I'm right now praying for everyone who is watching these videos right now already, because I know that God is going to do a great thing. And the first thing that he's going to do is really pierce that heart of yours that is needing to be heard, that is needing to hear what he has to say. So I just thank you all, and I just praise God for the process and the journey that we're all going to go on together. And I'm going to put some links in here about some of the videos that I saw in my journey of denouncing, so that the things that kind of helped me too as I was trying to do research when I was denouncing it, and things that kind of gave me more confirmation that I needed. Even though I knew God was telling me to denounce, there were some things that kind of added some more comfort and assurance to my process. Later on I'll share more of my story, but I just wanted to give a quick testimony and get straight to it. But more stories will come. So I thank you all for your time, and I hope to see you.